let's delve in a little bit more about shutter speeds and show what they can do for you when you control them. Now, starts off, first of all, good imagery starts with a good quality file in digital photography. So a file starts, first of all, with your meter. You have to be careful with your meter and understanding thoughtfully what is going on. Pay special attention to the scene inside the viewfinder and meter it carefully. Be aware of bright or dark areas in the scene that will change your exposure or perhaps throw your meter off and fool you. And most of all, take your time assessing the lighting conditions that you're shooting with. Don't assume your camera will solve all your exposure problems. So making shutter speeds work for you allows you to create different types of effects with your camera. A fast shutter speed will stop action. That's 1/250th of a second or faster. This is what sports photographers use all the time. A slow shutter speed, which is like 1/30th and below, will blur or allow colors to mix and create a totally different effect for your picture. So a way to remember this is in the simple illustration of this pinwheel. 1/250th of a second will stop the action in mid-action, as it were, and show the pinwheel as if it was stopped. 1/60th of a second, you still see the movement happening there, but the different colors are well defined. At 1/8th of a second, colors begin to blur, and a new design or a brand new interpretation of this pinwheel begins to take shape. This is a good example of how different shutter speeds affect the interpretation of a photograph. 1/30th of a second duration will be half as long as 1/15th of a second duration. Half or double, as we saw in a previous video. Same thing, f-stops operate the same way. As you go up the scale in the f-stop or stop down the amount of light coming through the lens, each designation is half of the previous, or double if you're going the other way. Same with shutter speeds. Now, it's important to remember that shutter speeds, like I say, are half or double the number that follows it. It's the same as f-stops. Very important. So f8 allows in double the amount of light that f11 allows, and 1/30th of a second shutter speed is twice as fast as 1/15th. In other words, 1/30th will allow less light to pass to the shutter. These are what we call intrinsic values of camera controls. Each one of these controls or numbers will have a different effect on how your photograph turns out. A fast shutter speed will capture this water skier spraying its bubbles into the air at a very fast, say 2,000ths of a second. A slow shutter speed will take this rickshaw driver and abstract him into a blur as the camera pans with him as he goes by. Something you can't see with the naked eye unless it's captured like this on the camera. So stop action and panning also have some aspects of it with using your camera. You can move your camera with a subject to create a certain effect, or you can keep your camera rock solid and have faster shutter speed and stop the action. So the first is called panning with the photograph. This involves, like I say, camera movement as the subject crosses the film plane. For instance, like these toboggan runners in the Olympics. This is panning with them as they go by very fast, but still using a slow shutter speed to get that motion blur. Same thing with these daisies. The camera, as the daisies blow in the wind, the camera is moving with them at a slow shutter speed to create the effect of motion. This is using your camera in a different way than most people ever think about. Now, stop action photography, most often the camera is rock solid on a tripod or whatever with a very fast shutter speed, and it freezes the action immediately, like this ball player getting hit in the head. It freezes the action with a very fast shutter speed at 1/250th or higher, or this skier coming over a slalom course, probably at 1/8000th of a second to freeze that action. All creative photography relies on both these, the f-stops and the shutter speeds, to create a unique camera technique for the photographer to be successful. So work at these with the shutter speed and f-stop working in concert, and your photography will improve greatly.